Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to Empowerment Moment with yours truly, Dr. G. Um, my goal, which is organization that I get to lead, is this to support families facing autism and other intellectual disabilities throughout their lifespan. And our vision has always been to be the gateway to hope, to create connections, and provide resources. And for 17 years, we've been able to come along families to do this. It actually blows my mind every time I think about the fact that this is the journey that we've been walking in. And I always will say that I didn't choose this journey, God chose it. There's a portion of scripture, I'm a believer, and I believe that God created me now more and more and more and more for a purpose, a divine purpose. And that divine purpose, part of it is to walk a journey that sometimes is often incredibly difficult. But because of the grace of God, I do it. And I do it because there are people God has surrounded me with, family, friends, and individuals on this journey who have been such a huge blessing. And so since COVID, we've been doing these talks once a month called Empowerment Moment. And I was praying about, okay, what topic should I do this time around? And the topic that came out is an area or something that I don't often bring out. And so the title is called I Didn't See This Coming. And it's a father's call to special needs parenting. This particular night, I'm very excited that I get to have a co-host with me, and I put him on a hot seat, and I'm very excited for what he will share. We'll do the intro in a minute, but the reason for it is that I wanted to really spotlight fathers, especially those who stick around and those who are committed to really, really, really supporting their loved ones who may need that extra support. For a lot of us, and even for the fathers, this journey is not something that we want to be on, but it become a necessity to really realize that our job as parents is to provide the best supports and services that we can for our loved ones, expose them, teach them, instruct them. But at the end of the day, there's also that emotional component, knowing that sometimes it could be very weighty. And for a lot of people, it's like, I didn't expect this coming. We're planning to have kids, and all of a sudden the realization that I have to do more than what I thought I would do. So we're going to take you from the father's perspective. And tonight we're going to have a real talk. It's not just going to be just anyhow, but just really to just reflect the fact that there are fathers out there who perhaps they're sitting and going to the doctor's office, and it's in the doctor's office that they hear for the first time something is different. Perhaps maybe they just have been noticing that something is a little subtle. There is some delays, there's some testing that needs to happen, and then all of a sudden there's a label, whatever it may be, wherever your father and you're listening right now, and when you first see it, maybe you keep quiet and hoping that this will pass. But whatever that moment may be, there's one thing that's true. There's life before the diagnosis, and there'll be life after it too. But for a lot of dads, that moment could be very, very, very hard, right? That moment where you may have heard it. So you start wondering, would my child be okay? Would I be enough? What does this mean for the future? You're not alone in this question if you're having this type of question. So I want to encourage you with the word of truth. Um, the book in Isaiah chapter 55, it says in 8 and 9, it says, For the thoughts I have towards you, my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways. That's what the Lord says. So even as heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways. God's plan and purpose is much bigger than what we think or imagine. And I bring that to really make the point that it's not always how we perceive things to be. But truthfully, there are people who are walking the journey who can kind of shed some light. So for the next few sessions, I'm going to talk to different dads. And so, of course, there's one of my favorite people, my favorite dads. It's not my father, but he is the father of my children. So, of course, I reached out to him and I said, Babe, we're doing this tonight. Are you going to join me in it? And he agreed. So here we are. I'm going to ask Bob K, they call him Bob K in some settings, to just kind of just dive in a little bit. And I have some few questions that I'm going to have for him. And a lot of it really has to do with the fact that he's been such a huge influence so many ways for it throughout my whole life. Thankfully, we've been married for a number of years, just a few number of years. But the last 17 or no, actually 24 years. 24 years is what the journey has been taken on a different shape. So I want us to just, Robert, who is Kumapling. I get my last name from him. So I want you to just kind of just introduce yourself and then I'll have some questions for you. Tonight I asked that he and I have some dialogue. I have some questions that I wanted him to kind of speak to. But before he does that, maybe we want to just start the session by you just kind of speaking your mind and then we can kind of dive into the question a little bit.
Yeah, no, thank you for the opportunity. I've been reflecting the whole day, kind of bringing back memories. My name is Robert Kumaple, and I'm a dad and a husband to Dr. Genevieve Kumaple, who I have a nickname for her, G-Force. She she's like a hurricane when she comes through. You're going to know she's present, right? Um, I really appreciate you doing this. Um, the moment I got the message, my day has been different because it got me back to reflect and also appreciate the journey that we've been on and how it has transformed not just our lives, but the life of others who have been on this journey with us, whether they were care providers, whether they were siblings of my son, whether anybody that we encountered, and the blessing that came out of the storm, the hurricane that was handed to us, I think has been incredible. So, thank you for giving me the platform.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. Because, like you just said, dad approaches things differently. So one of the things that I want you to kind of speak to is how did you process that, in the news emotionally when you first learned that, your son is having to approach life differently? How did you handle that, and what was going through your mind in the first few weeks or days?
Hmm. Well, while I'm having these conversations, I'm express myself because I'm thinking. Honestly, I didn't process it right away. Um, at first, it was confusion, then disbelief, and then overwhelming, eventually grief. Not grief for my son, but for the picture I had in mind of how life was supposed to go. We're going to play football, we're going to go to soccer games, and he's my only son, my only begotten son. So um, I had a vision of things that I had in mind that we would do as a father and a son. And, you know, he's the one that is, I said the girls will get married. They may get married to Smith, they may get married to whatever, but he's the one that's going to carry the Kumaple name into the future. Just like, I carried my dad's. So there were nights I sat in silence, just trying to understand what all this meant for him and for us as a family. Over time, that grief turned into clarity. And I realized that this wasn't the end of a dream, that it was the beginning of a different deeper one, right? So I had to come to the place where it was a journey of anxiety, journey of inclarity, but I had to come to the place where I had to redefine what that means. So for me, I think the breaking point was when I decided, rather than get angry at anyone, including you, Dr. Jeev, was to fight the battle with autism, take autism on one,
Mm.
and make a difference in other people's life.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you kind of spoke to one of the questions that I was going to ask you is that how did it, what were some of the moments that stood out to you? Like when it hit you, like how did you know that this was going to be different? And what was the crossing point? I mean, obviously you're a man of faith. How did that play in that transition for you?
So it wasn't easy, right? As I said, there were many moments where, as a father, I'm thinking, what does the future look like for Nick? You know, um, what what does the future look like when you and I are not there? And because I'm also looking at, his ability to experience this world, this physical world that we're in. And so,
All right. So then can you talk about how do you balance the pressure to kind of stay strong with the reality of your own emotions?
so generally, you are trained to, you know, I was raised in my home country, Ghana. I came here after I was already grown and mature. Is that you cannot show weakness, but I think um, as time goes on, you as time goes on, you try to look at the future and the current state you are in the present, right? And trying as much as possible to make sure that even the siblings, like the siblings, the sisters, have a fulfilled life, even as we navigate his journey to go forward.
So coming back to that though, what is the reality? How do you balance the two of like I'm staying strong versus the real? Because the reason I ask that question is sometimes some men don't own up to their feelings that the reality is that, hey, I am going through something. I need to seek support. I need to seek some help so that it's not just, hey, I just have to show off like I'm strong all the time, right?
Mhm.
So in what settings do you find the value in connecting to other people?
Well, I think the so some of the things that we did, for example, South Brunswick School District had a fathers. I think it was every Thursday, and that support is important because sometimes you need to get a perspective and you need to understand, even within the storm, the opportunity that you have. So I remember there was a director of the education program. I won't mention his name, but we had a fathers group, which I thought was kind of different at the time. And I used to go there and I used to kind of be myself, where I am like, reflecting and say, oh, I feel pity for myself. My son, he has autism. And the man, after we shared our stories of where we are today and where we see things, he said, in his family, there's always been a junior. His son did not have any disability. His son did not have any issues. His son was just walking from school in the South Brunswick district to home, and there was a truck that climbed the sidewalk. and killed his son. He has daughters, but he said, you know, I would rather have my son with autism than a son that is normal.
Mm.
You know, just that reaction that you said right there was how I walked out of that building. And I said, you know, the Bible said what a living dog is better than
A
a
dead
dead
lion.
lion, right? When I walked out of that building that night, and I realized how blessed I was, even in the situation of the storm that I was in.
Mm.
And I think that was for me was very deep and took me to a different level where I felt like, okay, at least I have him. At least I can touch him.
Mm.
At least I can hold him. I can hug him. He can kiss me, you know. And then he did all that. You know, I'll come from work and he'll meet me at the door, he'll hold me, he'll run back and forth, you know, whatever how people consider that. But then he'll kiss me. And I was like, man, you know, and that individual was just telling us that as bad as much as you think you have it bad, I don't have that blessing that you have.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that for me was very emotional and transformational in my journey to begin to appreciate what I had.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that story. I'm sure that there are some fathers out there or even some moms. And if you're watching tonight and you can share this video, please do, because obviously there's someone out there that really needs to hear it. That no matter what your situation is, be grateful and thankful that you have a loved one that is here with you still, right? Because there's some people that want that our experiences. Which will bring me to this question. What advice would you give other fathers who may feel distant or disconnected after getting a diagnosis? What words of encouragement would you offer?
So, you know, it is our nature that we avoid um, we avoid discomfort, we avoid um, things that we are not comfortable with, right? And nowhere in I'm a believer, but I became a believer before these situations came. So this situation did not necessarily make me a believer, but it matured me as a believer. So I would say, don't run from the pain.
Hmm.
Walk through it. Walk through the storm. Your child doesn't need you to fix anything, right? Your child just needs you to show up, even when it feels awkward or uncomfortable. Just be present because that's what he needs. Connection starts with consistency, not perfection. So, like I shared with you, the fact that my son could hear the garage roll up and he's running to the door, expectant that I will walk through that door, I think it's just something that I've never really shared this even with my wife, but the fact that I can walk through the door and I see him running, he probably running all over the living room, whatever, but when he hears that garage roll up and he comes to the door, he hugs me, he gives me a kiss. I think that is not only that, sometimes when he is actually um, giving the ladies a tough time, he hears the garage like he's supposed to take shower. He said, "Oh, daddy is coming through the door." He knows he doesn't want me to be upset. So he runs to the bathroom, takes off his clothes, jumps in the shower, because he knows that's not what he knows that what he's trying to do with the ladies is not what I'm expecting him to do, right? And I walk through the door, it's like, oh, Nick is taking shower. I already know what has happened, but that alone is even a joy, irrespective of the day, how good the day went. The icing is on the cake is when I see him, you know, being compliant and doing the things. So I will share another part of this. So when Nick had the impact from the beginning, if you ask him anything, he just gave it out. So if he was holding a toy, he said, Nick, give me the toy. He just gave it to you, right? But if you note very carefully, that's just not human nature. Um, but when he started to make progress, if you say, Nick, can I have that toy? He put it behind his back. That's so it was interesting. I mean, I learned a lot, on this journey that I'm sure this is the first time I'm sharing that with you, Dr. G, but it was interesting that when you ask him and he gave it naturally to whether it was the sisters or me. And then all of a sudden, as he's making some incremental progress, he decides to be a little bit selfish, right? But that is our human Adamic nature, right? And then that little progress, I can begin to share with you how that brought joy to my heart. And now he relates to his siblings very differently. He and I go for walks, and he will be kissing me in between the journey. He's not verbal, but he has his ways that he does communicate, and he's a very loving, caring individual. I remember there was a little baby that was crying in church, and he just launched at me, basically saying, like, go do something about it, right? Why are you allowing the baby to cry? Can you just not do something? And he's like holding my hand and dragging me, get out of your seat, go do something. Why is baby crying, right? And you look at that and you're like, wow, thank God, I'm thankful because um, there are things that as parents, even for neurotypical kids or kids that we consider normal, um, you know, we've seen many stories about how parents are kind of their expectations are not being met and they are walking a different journey. So I'll stop there. Maybe you have other questions to ask, but I'll stop there.
No, I think, giving these tangible examples are very important. And I think as I'm hearing you kind of speak about it in this forum, it's enabling you to look over your lifespan, all the pivotal moments that this young man has transformed your life, right? So for the new parent who's starting this journey, you're looking back 24 years now, and you're able to kind of do these things. What would be a word of encouragement to them as they're just beginning this journey?
So when we first started this journey, before all this, I didn't even know there was anything like autism. I I had no idea. I think now there's a lot of literature. But what I would say is that most importantly, I think sticking together as a family has been a blessing. And by the way, when this journey started, I'll be very transparent. It's I part of me was upset at my wife because she came up with a son. And I know this may not, I'm just being transparent. Like, I'm like, how did I get here? There is no such thing in my family, but there's no such thing in her family either, right? But normally human beings, we always try to find somebody that we can assign the situation and the problem to. We are always perfect, but never wrong, right? So one day in the township, we used to live in the township of Jamesburg, and I was walking down the steps, and something said to me, why are you trying to even make your wife the one that's responsible for this? That's when I decided that my wife is not the battle that I want to fight. The battle I want to fight is autism, and to make parents aware, to make parents of how to navigate this complex situation. And I can tell you that where I am in my career today and the leadership skills that people credit me for came as a result of my re-engineering of myself because of how I needed to interact with my son Nick. Right? I'm very empathetic. There may be rules at work, but I'm always looking at, somebody. I mean, we have all kinds of rules, right? People say, "Oh, it's remote. If your daughter is sick, then go ahead and just sign in and whatever, right?" But when you've been through a lot of situations and you had to navigate that, you are more empathetic. How can I help this person that they can appreciate that even though they've transitioned from remote to 4 days or whatever, that their daughter is sick, they go to daycare. Once you send children to daycare, they're going to try, in the season like this, they're going to be sick. They're going to how do you help them navigate that with all the HR rules, right?
Mhm.
So I think Nick has made me a more empathetic, compassionate human being, and you know that's where I am today.
Wow, thank you for being so very transparent. You basically really highlighted what a lot of women and a lot of families go through, where the husbands are absent or blame the wives because of what's happened. Statistics have shown that one out of, it's almost like almost 80% of families that have special needs individuals end up in divorce, which is very unfortunate. And
I'm
that's
not going to try it. I wasn't even that did not even cross my mind because my Nicholas needed the two of us.
And that's what I'm highlighting, how crucial it is that people stick around. And you said something that's really powerful, and I don't think I've ever heard of it like that before, is because of this journey with Nick, it has transformed you even as a person. It's made you a better human being in dealing with other people across other places. It's made you realize that, you know what, we may make rules in our workplaces or in different environments, but there's always a story, there's always a person, there's complications behind it. And as leaders, maybe hearing this today, being sensitive about what people may be dealing with beyond that. And so, for a parent out there listening, realize also that whatever you're walking through right now is going to make you a better person. It's going to make you more patient. Some of us have learned that. I used to say that during COVID, the way that people were reacting about the disruption. So for some of us, it was like, this is normal. This is what we have to deal with because life is not perfect. You can plan it, but it's not going to go the way you anticipate it, right? And I think that's really what I'm hearing you say is that this journey has transformed you as a man. I
Mhm.
also heard you also say something important about the recognition that yeah, you can't blame the woman for it. So I want to really highlight because sometimes culturally, sometimes people blame their parents, their grandparents,
Yeah,
something or the other
yeah,
for the reason for what the child may be going through.
yeah.
And even if you read the Bible, it tells you that there was a scripture where a man came and said, "What made, was what did this parent sin? Is that why this child is cute?"
Yeah,
And Jesus said, "It's neither the parents or
yeah,
that." So the
yeah,
point here is that we know that human side will want to assign blame. And
yeah.
sometimes for somebody out there, you're listening and you think maybe something I ate is something I drank, is whatever you think was the causality is not for you to stay on top of that, but it is actually to work together with your loved one to offer solutions.
Yeah.
So, what other advice would you give others as we get to round up? Because I know I didn't want this to be super long.
I
We'll
think
probably do a part two of this conversation.
I think for me is stay connected with God. And I know that's not a cliche, and I mean that. I'll share a very personal moment. There was a time the long bus came, pick students, and the short bus came. And Nick ran from the garage to jump on the what do you call it, the short bus. And I was like, man, this is not what I was expecting for my child. And a voice just spoke into my ear whispered into my ear. I call it a pesky voice, and I want every parent to discover what that voice is. Uh, in those that are saved, they call it the Holy Spirit. I was calling it the pesky voice. But that voice said to me, he said, so Nick got onto the bus and the bus moved. And I saw the back of the bus moving. And he said, you know something? Look at all the people who made significant difference in this world. Uh, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and he listed a whole list of people. And he said, what degree did they have? So he said, the path to success is not what you think. But through Nick's situation, there will be a different path that would open different doors. And that day was very huge for me because that was the day I let go. That because part of my worry is okay, he's going on the small bus, that is special needs. What does that mean, right? That means he's not going to go to college the normal way. And in my mind, if you don't go to college, but God just, or the voice just said to me, I have my own ways
Mm.
and I make my own rules. Why don't you just do your part? And that was like a therapy for me. That's why for me, I gave up all the worry, all the stuff, right? And health wise, I didn't know how much stressed I was about these things. But then that voice that spoke to me, it kind of made me let go. So I'm saying to those fathers and those mothers to say, develop the skill to hear from the ultimate God, for the big God. Because when he speaks to you, then Nick, even in his group home, is a leader. So when other people are making noise, he just tells them, go to your room, relax, and come back. And that's what the people that are taking care of him, they say over there, right? One day, I don't know whether it happens or it doesn't happen, even those who are taking care of Nick are being blessed, right? So I think we should have that, take advantage of that opportunity to develop the skill to hear from our Maker.
Wow, wow, wow. Spoken like a true prophet that you are. I call him prophet too, because he really has a heart of just compassion and just, I really want to say thank you for such a powerful session. Yes, they've been asking for part two. I think there's more to share as we think about ways that we can encourage others who have joined us on this journey.
Mhm,
You've commented on some really significant pieces, which is really being open-minded,
mhm,
um, and expecting that your child will make progress. You talked about even the progress from being a very unselfish person, childlike, to now
yeah,
getting to the place where he
yeah,
now also became like just like the rest of us. So the hope that we have in always sharing our story, being transparent with you all who are listening, is to just remind you that whatever you're walking through,
yeah.
it is not the end. Whatever
Mhm,
the challenge may be, it doesn't mean that that's the end for you. It just means that you just have to be open-minded. And raising children is a process.
mhm,
And one of the greatest thing we can give them is our presence,
yeah,
and for us to tell them that we love them.
yeah,
I also learned from you tonight the importance of staying together and working together. So there are people out there who are listening to us who are wanting to just say, you know what, let me just go my separate ways. No, you do much better going together. You may
yeah,
not always agree on how it should get done. You and I have had our differences in many of these things, but God gave us the grace to listen to one another, be patient in our whole process. And I think that's really where, we wanted to kind of highlight. So like I said before, the title of this whole session was to kind of bring it, to kind of give something to it to say, I didn't see this coming. I didn't see this coming. And you really have highlighted the fact that you didn't see how this whole thing will even transform you as a person.
Yeah.
That's why we titled it. So it's like a father's call to special needs parenting. And it's truly, truly remarkable as a parent. So I want to say thank you. Let's just give him a wonderful applause for that. Really, really, really awesome for that. So, Sen, I'm going to bring you on
Yeah.
because my goal is just to support families facing autism and other intellectual disabilities. And we have ongoing programming that we did. We want to thank the dads that joined us, and we want to also thank colleagues that joined us tonight on there because I know Bob Cave had given you enough notice. You'd have let the whole world know. So we will plan for that for next month. So you will have your whole tribe to be aware. All right, go for it, Senna.
All right, everyone. We're very excited to bring to you our upcoming events. I know that I've really been blessed by this time and hope that you'll continue to join us in supporting the organization and participating in the programming that we have. So first up is our 17th, I can't believe it's been 17 years, our annual Autism Gala. And our theme this year is Seeds of Greatness. There will be so many amazing speakers, performances, stories that we'll have to share. So we want to really strongly encourage you to get your tickets. They will be closing very soon. Our ticket sales will be closing next weekend. So if you have not already purchased, please do, even if you're thinking about it, considering it, it's crossed your mind. Now is the time to get your tickets. And again, it'll be September 15th at 7 p.m. at the Pine.
November 15th.
Sorry, November 15th. I'm going back in time. November 15th. So hopefully we'll get to see everybody there at our gala. We're very, very excited for the night that we have planned ahead. We actually also have our Ask the Expert. That'll actually be the last of the year. I can't believe it already. This will be with Dr. Laurel Levy, and the topic is the basics of assessments and evaluations. So if you're getting lost in the alphabet soup of assessments and evaluations, this is the session to join. It will be November 9th at 3 p.m. And finally, we will also have our empowerment moment with Dr. G again. I don't know about you. If you enjoyed this time, we invite you to join us back again next month on November 28th at 7 p.m. for another exciting and encouraging time. So hopefully everyone enjoyed this evening. We look forward to seeing you again next month for our next empowerment moment.
Absolutely. So the next one is going to be on a Friday because this Thursday evening will be Thanksgiving Day, and we don't want anybody to miss their time together. It'll be Friday the 28th, and if you enjoy this session, he will come back. There'll be more conversations. We want fathers to be empowered and encouraged for that. We really are very, very, very proud of the work all our men who stay who are the heroes for our children. The moms are too, but we just want to be able to just really recognize that there are those who are there in the journey that they're walking and the value that they bring. So, like Senna said, we are here to make sure you feel empowered and encouraged. So, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Have a fantastic evening, and we'll see you next month. We'll see you, next month for our annual gala. Have a good night, everyone.